Hi Year 8, I am going to do a demonstration for the lesson today, and I thought it would be quite a good idea because I can demonstrate so you can be watching me on the video and I can check you out and make sure that you're focused and not chatting. So, in today's lesson for the main task I want you to be trying out 3 different techniques of using mixed media. So I know we had a go at that last lesson where you had a bit of time to explore your own designs and use materials in your own way, but I would like you to try out these specific techniques today. So we're going to do 3 different techniques. The first one, you'll need to select some colours. So at this stage I might ask you a few questions. So what colours, if we're producing African designs, would you associate with African designs? So this is where you can tell me the answers. And good. So now that we know what colours we want to use, we need to know how to make them. So if I'm going to go for warm colours, I need to mix up my key colours, which will be the ones that you have on your paint palettes. I've got quite a mix here, but for you to be using the colours that are available to you, how would I make orange? Okay, good. So we've got red, which we're going to start off with. I don't want you to cover the whole thing consistently. I just want you to do a little bit. So we're brushing the brush across the paper. Remember, when you're mixing paint, what do you need to do to make sure that it's a nice thick colour? Good. Okay, so mixing the paint really nicely, so pushing the brush into the paint, so we're lifting the paint up and we're putting it onto the paper. Next colour, which hopefully you will have told me to make my orange, yellow. So get a little bit of yellow. And obviously the dry paints always need a little bit of working into so that we can really lift the paint up. So I'm going to brush the yellow over the red, keep picking up paint if you need it, and what we should get is a nice kind of bit of a rainbow effect. Now I want a little hint of brown in there, so with the colours available to you, what colour do you think I could add to bring out some tones of brown? Okay, so a tiny bit of black. With the black you don't want to overdo it, so we're just going to put some few lines through. And while your paint is a little bit wet, you can use your newspaper as well to dab off your brush. You can then blend, so a little bit of water, and you should get some nice lines in here. So good old fashioned Blue Peter special, here's one I made earlier. So this one's now dry and ready, and the reason why we're doing 3 techniques is because you can then rotate your pieces of work. So while one is drying, you'll be able to work on another one. So once this one is dry, you've got a nice background which you can then add your oil pastels to. So on this particular piece of paper, I've chosen to do a mask. So what elements of African design do we need to consider if we are drawing a mask shape? Good. So reflective design, symmetry, and repetition as well. So I'm not quite sure. So at this stage you'll be able to use the resources available to you to support you with the designs that you're creating. So each time I create a shape, I'm then reflecting it on the other side. At the moment I've only got one colour, but it's quite effective if you add, if I've got a dark brown and a white, we've got what? Okay, so contrasting colours. So as soon as I add my white in, it starts to lift the shape of my mask. Obviously I've got a bit more detail to add in. At this point I haven't got one that I made earlier, so you'll have to bear with me. So with the nose, I'm again reflecting the shapes. which is a really important element of our African design. So hopefully you'll be able to spend a bit longer on them, but you should be able to get something like this. So at this stage you can explore with your colours that you're using. It's entirely up to you, but I'd like you to try out the overall technique of getting a paint base and then putting your pastels over the top. So that's technique number 1 done. Next technique, we're going to look at pattern, and again you can choose what design you want to do, but for this particular one I've chosen to do pattern. If you do something different, then that's your choice. So this one starts off with oil pastels, so we're creating whatever your design is first, and then once you've kept going and you've got a full design, you may again want to use a couple of colours to fill in some spaces, so you want it really nice and detailed. And then if you remember back to when we did wax resist, who can tell me how the wax worked on the paper, what happened when we put the ink over the top? Good, okay, so when you put the ink over the top, wherever you lay your pastels, it won't go over. So we can paint over our pattern quite roughly, and it won't go where our oil pastels are because it acts as a resist. So it's quite a good way of getting detail and nice blocks of colour on it at the same time. So I'm going to change my colour in the middle. I have a nice bright orange. So again, I'm using nice warm colours so I can really show off the African design. So here I haven't got enough paint on my brush because it's going too wishy-washy, so I just needed to work my brush in a bit more onto that bit. So as you build up and combine your different materials, you'll get really nice bright solid designs. So this part of the pattern is supposed to represent the pattern that you find on a giraffe. So lots of association with colour and pattern so that we can link our designs and people can look at them and think Africa instantly. Last but not least, technique number 3. I've used a dabbing technique on this one with the paintbrush. So this is my dry one, which I'm going to use for an ink design in a minute. But what I did to get the texture effect was just get some paint on my brush and literally dab it across the page. And as you build it up, you can leave gaps, so you're ending up with different tones. So some will be thick and thin consistencies of the paint where it goes onto the paper. And then if you build it up with a second colour, so again you could mix maybe a red and a yellow, or you could mix brown and greens, it's entirely up to you. But what you'll get is nice different tones and texture on your paper. On this particular one, I mixed green all over and then extended the green around the edges to get so as if it's gone from dark and on the outside to lighter in the middle. So it depends how you apply your paint to how you could achieve that on your paper. So I'm rushing a little bit here now because you might be itching to get started, hopefully. So when you're leaving that one to dry, don't forget to swap around your work while you're waiting for things to dry. So this one that I started with is now ready to put pastels on if I wanted to. So they do dry really quickly. So second material for this one is your fine line pens. And for this one I think I might do some kind of lizard. So on this stage of your design with your black fine line pens, it's quite effective for you to be considering symbols. So thinking back to the symbols that we looked at the very beginning, so you might have some in your sketchbook that you want to try out. This particular fine line pen isn't particularly good. And I'm not 100% sure if lizards have things like that, but we're making up. And remember that also when the Africans do create their animal designs. They are simplified and use thick and thin lines, so when you do your design you need to consider that as well. And again, with a lot of the animals, they're reflective. One of the symbols that we looked at was the Siamese serpentine, I think. So he might be one that you might try. So as you can see already, by using the light colours other than the green, having the black over the top makes it stand out really nicely. So don't forget your patterns and things within your symbol or whatever design you choose to do. You may choose to actually do the paint and pen technique with maybe a mask design. So this isn't looking brilliant right now, but that's because it needs working on and building on the pattern and things within the animal. And obviously try and get your lines consistent. Where I'm drawing here, it's not looking consistent, but you can find that up by just taking your time to really make the lines nice and consistent and bold and stand out. So that one would continue. And now you get to have a go yourself. So, get the equipment you need and get started.